All right, fire it up. Just do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give him hell at the end. You like to?
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on. Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Record. Hell yeah.
11 got it. Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4. Great job, guys.
Hey. And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Hopefully I've got volume. I do. At least it appears to be. Appreciate you tuning in for another exciting week of NASCAR Cup Series as we head to Darlington. And in fact, I'm headed to Darlington first thing in the morning. So I go to Darlington for the first time in the 35 plus years I've been watching NASCAR. I've always wanted to go, and things kind of lined up. I'm kind of going down to see my dad in Charleston, South Carolina, so it's kind of in between. So I get to make a little pit stop and spend 3.5 hours watching the Cup guys try to upstage themselves from last week. What an exciting race that was at Kansas. After a couple of hours of rain that was supposed to stay to the south, and all indications were it was until it didn't, and then we had a delay. So either way, let's take a look back at last week's Advent Health 400 at the Kansas Speedway, where I'm sure everyone now knows we saw the closest finish ever in NASCAR history, and all of the fun, I don't know, painted line controversy. To come to find out, that's really not the start-finish line. There's actually a little digital line that is drawn by a camera. It is actually the start-finish line, and it's actually just slightly before. So kind of like if you're looking at this picture where the number 5 is on Kyle Larson's car, on the side of the car. That's about where the start-finish line actually is, or somewhere close to there. Either way, Kyle Larson wins by 0.001, and I think the newest thought process is we now need to add a 4th digit, so 10,000ths of a second, so that way we truly know who won and by how much, because we'll never be able to tell if this event ever gets broken. At this point, it could be tied, but I'm not sure it can be broken. So there is all that fun controversy. That was quite interesting this week. But either way, my guy, Kyle Larson, pulled it off after he was told, hey, you didn't win, you missed it, to come find out that he did. But it would have been quite interesting to see if Martin Truex Jr. would have had enough to get past Denny Hamlin at the end. Truex thinks he did, and I think even Denny Hamlin thinks that probably would have been the case also. But either way, let's take a look at our optimal lineups and other guys that just missed the optimal lineup that still scored well. So we had Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher, the surprise of the weekend. Chris Buescher and Ford showed up in grand fashion. And that seems to be, I mean, they did really, really well. And I kind of missed this a little bit. I think I talked about it, but I didn't put as much emphasis as I probably should have, was how well they actually ran at the other 1.5 mile track being Las Vegas, because they both finished, I think it was top 5 in that race also. So, but Chris Buescher, led 54 laps, looked to be one of the stronger cars in the field, and are we seeing the resurgence of at least RFK and Ford? Maybe. Supposedly Ford and RFK and whoever's making their engines has found a little tweak in their engine package to help improve horsepower. So, you know, I don't know if it's just all talk or if there's actually something to it, but maybe we'll start to see more. I think this weekend will give us a good indication on whether we are seeing anything out of the Ford camp. Let's see, who else? Todd Gillen ended up having a pretty good weekend with also in Fords. We had 3 Fords, 2 Toyotas, and a Chevy making the optimal lineup. And then as we look down to other drivers that maybe if you had replaced Martin Truex Jr. with Brad Keselowski, you still would have had really close to an optimal lineup, or Chase Elliott or any of those types of guys if they would have fit. I'm not sure they would have fit money-wise. But either way, Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney, all with good days in DraftKings world. But we had no dominators. And this is kind of something that I'm starting to see more and more is we talk about these dominators in these races. And really to be a dominator, it's you got to lead 30% of the laps, probably 15% of the fast laps, to really be considered kind of a dominating performance. At least that's kind of my metric for it. And, you know, we're just not seeing that. I mean, we're getting close. I mean, you could really kind of put up there that Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Chris Buescher were kind of dominators for this race, but they truly weren't in the way that, I mean, when you get a dominator like today during the Xfintiy race, you had Justin Allgaier lead 100 and some odd laps of the 140. That he was a dominant figure, and he had 105 points. Nobody within like 30 points of him. That's when I consider somebody to be dominant. And I think we're starting to see more and more of that where we're when we talk about targeting a dominator for the field, it's really place different or place finishing position being kind of in that top 5 type spot. Which is interesting to kind of see the dynamic change with this next gen car as it goes to DraftKings, because it used to be place differential or dominator, and you know you had to have 1 or 2 dominators and you had to have 3 or 4 place differentials. Now it's more like 2 to 3 guys that are going to finish top 5, and then the rest of it's place differential. Now some of those guys, like Chris Buescher, started 12th and finished 2nd. I consider that a place differential because it's at least 10 spots or 10 points of place differential. Well, Chris Buescher kind of had a little of everything. And Denny Hamlin was close to that. When he's got 10 points of place differential, he gets a really high finish. You know, right there is 50 of his 70 points came from where he finished. And the rest of the points came from fast laps and laps led. So either way, our optimal lineup challenge after 12 races, I mean, it is a tight knot at the top. Ross Chastain, Noah Gragson, Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, all with 4, and right there behind them in one spot is Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, William Byron, Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin. I mean, yeah, and any of these guys that get on a little bit of a tear can easily take over the lead or move themselves out of kind of the basement or get themselves on this list. So either way, quite interesting to kind of keep track of this as we go through the year. And it's really, really knotted up top. So, all right. As promised, each week I'm going back to look at our practice laps, qualifying, and 10 lap averages to see if there's any indication on how that works. So this chart here really looks at fall off, which would be the tire wear difference, and who had the least amount of fall off and practice speeds compared to their DraftKings places. So we saw, I mean, a little bit of an indication here, and it also shows kind of their finishing spots, because typically if you have a pretty good finishing spot, you end up having a pretty good DraftKings day also. So, I mean, we had Kyle Larson be second on fall off speed, and he finished first in DraftKings. All right, well, it's Kyle Larson. So Martin Truex Jr. expected him to finish up pretty close to up front also. But the one we didn't kind of get was Chris Buescher, that I didn't recognize. Chris Buescher had very little fall off. He had really good practice speeds, and he ended up finishing second and third in DraftKings points. Same thing with Brad Keselowski. Now, the ones that, Joey Logano was a little bit surprised, but he did have an issue and ended up going 2 laps down towards the end of the race, but was running in a fairly good spot when that happened. Ryan Preece was never in play. Jimmy Johnson had issues. I didn't expect him to be in play either. But Ty Gibbs fell off after having really, really good practice speeds. And that was a tire went down late in the final run before the caution came out, and he ended up going 2 laps down. So Ty Gibbs, Joey Logano, both with issues late in the race, but they were running well up until that point. So I think there is a little bit something here that we can kind of look at, because if we look at who was worst on their fall-off speeds from practice, their single lap to 10 lap, Harrison Burton, we kind of knew that was going to be one of them. Jared Krause, he ended up finishing 18th place in DraftKings points, so that's not too bad. Some of that was just some attrition that he was able to get, because he started in 38th. And he had no place to go really but up. But he finished 31st. So, super, super deep value when it comes to that. Ryan Blaney had a pretty significant fall off and ended up having 9th in DraftKings points. So none of these guys, except for one, were top 10 in DraftKings points. So maybe there's a little something here to kind of see. But the sample size is still kind of small with only 2 races in. We didn't see quite. I didn't have all this information also when I looked at Dover, and I'm not going to go backwards. It's just I've got too many other things looking forward that I can't look back at everything. And now that I'm doing this each week, hopefully it'll start to give us some indications on kind of what to look at and what not to look at. All right. Either way, let's head to Darlington for the Goodyear 400, or better known as Throwback Weekend. So all the cars a lot of them have a throwback scheme of some type. And I did change some of the pictures for some of the ones that I thought were a little bit better. But either way, this is a intermediate, steep, high tire wear track. It's 1.33 miles in length. It's got some decent banking in the corners. It does have some progressive banking. But typically, right up top is where most of these cars are going to run. And in turns 1 and 2, it's 25 degrees. In turns 3 and 4, it's 23 degrees. And it is an oblonged racetrack. And they did this because of the pond off of turn 4. And they had to not go into the pond, and it was too difficult to move the pond. So they just made the track a little bit smaller on that end, which made it a very unique racetrack, to say the least. We've got a total of 293 laps, Dominator points of 205. And I'm going to continue to call it Dominator points because that's what these points are, but it's really a combination of laps led and fast laps. Coming from 131.85 of fast laps and 37.25 of laps led. But finishing position, I think, is as important. So I think when we're targeting for this race, we're looking at 3 place differential, 1 potential dominator that's going to end up finishing well, and 2 that are going to finish top 5. Other high tire wear tracks that we can compare to, of course, Darlington's in this mix. Dover, which we just went to a couple weeks ago, Miami Homestead, and Kansas that we just left. So all these tracks that are, you can also put Charlotte in here, but we haven't run Charlotte on the oval since almost a year ago. So the data is a little bit older, but these are some of the tracks that we can look at for comparisons to the high tire wear and this next gen car. optimal lineups from previous Darlington races to kind of give us an idea of what we're looking at when we start to dive into driver by driver comparisons. I mean, once again, this is kind of showing the same type of trend. Last year, we had Tyler Reddick, who started in third, finished in second. He did lead 90 laps of 367. The fall race is almost 100 laps. It's like 85 laps longer than the spring race, which is the 400 miler. But we had first, second, fourth, and fifth. So finishing position was very, very important. So 4 of those guys. 2 value picks, I mean 4,900 and 5,500, and we've seen these value picks become really, really important to find out who we should be targeting on the value side. And I do have a new chart when it comes to practice on looking at just the value guys, in the deep value guys, because what that does is it allows us to run the much more expensive guys along with 1 or 2 or 3 of the cheaper options. Because as you can see, I mean, 23.5 points and 27.05 points. You would think there's no way that these guys are going to make optimal lineups. Those are really, really crappy DraftKings scores. But because we were able to run everyone else $9,300 or above, you could run these guys, and they ended up playing into it. Same thing kind of in the spring race from last year, which is the 400 miler. No real true dominator. I mean, really, honestly, that didn't make the optimal lineup, and we had a 7 and a 5. So finishing position was much more of a big deal. William Byron finishing first, Kevin Harvick in second, Chase Elliott in third, but everybody finished in the top 10. We had 4 drivers that had place differentials, and 3 of them that finished in the top 5. So really starting to hone in and really kind of seeing we really need to target that finishing spots. And it's not always people who start up front stay up front, especially at Darlington. It's a very, very difficult track to manage your tires really well. And as the day or evening progresses, the track temperatures really change how much the tire wear will fall off. And, as the tire begins to wear into the surface, makes it a little slicker. You pick up some old tire, some old rubber that's on the track, you lay down some new, things of that nature. So same thing. I mean, out of all these races, we had one race where we had one dominator, Joey Logano, in the spring race of 2022, the first year of this next-gen car, which was a little bit of a different style because we weren't quite prepared for what the next-gen car and all these different tracks were going to do to it. And setups were just a little bit out to lunch. So either way, it's still really showing. I mean, we're really targeting on who's finishing in the top 10 and, who's starting kind of towards the back. So, and we've got some people to target this weekend that definitely fit that bill. So, when we are looking at our top 15 in DraftKings points, I have added another layer to this look. I know I just keep adding more and more data points. But I think it really is the more data that we look at, the more we can kind of start to hone in on what we need to look at taking, who we need to look at taking, where they're starting, how well they practiced and didn't practice, and those types of things. Wyatt, more data the better. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. The problem is you can almost get a little lost in the data. But, I'd rather dig into the data, dig further into the data, and kind of see if there's things that start to show up more often than not. And I think kind of what I'm seeing is kind of what I talked about earlier. Finishing position is as important, if not more important, than dominators, because we're not seeing with this next-gen car guys go out and lead 250 laps of a 300-lap race. It's not something that happens as much anymore. Also, pit crews are much more equal. The cars are equal. It's harder to pass. A lot of those types of things. As we get into like a race this weekend where tire wear is going to be huge, we'll see less dominator, more passing, which has and fast laps are really kind of much more important than laps led. So those fast laps begin to get spread out from guys that had saved a little bit of tire. They start to run better, or a pit strategy where somebody comes in early. I mean, you could literally take a Harrison Burton, or actually, who was it, Family Man, that you were like, you took how much of, was it Emmerich, or wasn't Kraus? Who was it that I took a bunch of that you were surprised at? He actually had almost 32 DraftKings points. I'm trying to remember who it was that you sent me a text about. Probably looking that up real quick. And I was like, yeah, I took a bunch of him. And you were like, no way, I would have never done that. There it is. Was it Haley? No. I can't remember. Maybe you can remember or not. Was it Dylan? Kraus. It was Derek Kraus I took 24% of. And it almost paid off. He ended up having a 32-point DraftKings day. And if we go back and look, here, we'll scroll this up real quick. If we go back and look at the optimal lineups, I mean, he would have, I think he was 16th or 17th in point totals, which, you know, I mean, still was not great, but for somebody who was like $5,000, it would have ended up being not a bad thing for the price if I'd paired him up with something up here. So, but anyway, I mean, I ended up, I think just breaking even or just missing a little bit. But so when looking at all this, this is starting position in the race, and who's showing up in the top 15 in DraftKings points for each of these races. And then, you know, more importantly, it's the average that I kind of look at. We have to start with this data, and I like to show it, but it's really this top box up here, which are the averages. And it's really showing that the front row is not as scary as it used to be, because a lot of times the guys that start up front stay up front for the most part. But 3 of the top 15 come from the top 5. 2 of the top 15 in DraftKings points come from 6th through 10th. Really, the sweet spot is between 11 and 20 and 21 through 30. Now, that all depends on who's starting towards the rear, who had issues, who was fast in practice and had an issue in qualifying. And that changes the variable a little bit on how far back you can go. But realistically, we're only looking at targeting 1 or 2 guys that are coming from 31st or worst. But our sweet spot is kind of that 11 through 30, and mixed in with a couple of the guys that we think are going to lead a bunch of laps, have some fast laps, but also have really, really good finishing positions. And it's kind of really showing in here, out of the top 15 in points. Actually, no, this is the average for everyone in the race. And to have a dominating position, because sometimes you'll lead 100 laps, which would indicate that you had a dominant car, but ended up having a blown engine, or you got wrecked, or whatever. Only 1.4 drivers on average out of the entire field led more than 30%. And 15% of the fast laps is under a half a driver per race. Place differential, there's 7.2 that fall into the place differential, which is movement of 10 spots or more in a race. The place differential is pretty big. So with all this information, it's kind of, the more and more I start to look at this and kind of drill down on it, a lot of this information is still, it's always been out there, but the more and more I'm looking at this information week in and week out, I'm starting to draw comparisons on how many place differentials do I need to target, and how well finishing position matters. So this kind of tells me that you need to lean a little bit into dominating points, really a whole lot into finishing, and even more so place differential. So not quite to the extreme of a super speedway style type, but place differential plays a massive difference, especially recently with this next gen era car, just because they're so close. I mean, halftime, if we don't have much carnage, most of these guys will only have a handful of drivers only one lap down, which really, at that point, it's almost anybody's race. You get a late caution, and somebody tries a different tire strategy and those types of things. It's anybody's race. So definitely gets a little bit tougher. And this is kind of the rankings that I have, where they're starting and who I think could potentially finish up front or might end up finishing top 15 in DraftKings points. So I think William Byron, Tyler Reddick starting in the top 5 have a really good shot. Definitely don't underestimate Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski. Ty Gibbs, we just don't have a whole lot of information with Ty Gibbs at this track. He, until we start to get more data on Ty Gibbs, it's a little tough to kind of really handicap him real well. And that 6 through 10 kind of seems to be a real sweet spot. I mean, we got Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Truex Jr., Ross Chastain, and potentially even Bubba Wallace has started to run pretty well here at Darlington also. That 11 through 20 spot, which is really kind of the real sweet spot, we got a lot of really, really good drivers. Blaney, Bell, Busch, Logano, Bowman. McDowell has started to show some much better speed. Briscoe potentially, Todd Gilliland. Those are kind of a little bit more risky, but I think a Blaney, a Bell, a Busch all have really good pedigrees when it comes to Darlington, especially Logano. And then 21 through 30. I mean, Eric Jones is his first time back after his injury at Talladega, but he has 2 wins, one being in this next gen era car here at Darlington. So definitely do not sleep on Eric Jones. Justin Haley had pretty good practice speeds and has a pretty good average finish here. So definitely kind of keep an eye on him. But, there's a decent amount of place differential, even though I don't love a whole lot coming through the 21st through 30th spots. 31 through 38, Chase Elliott just had an awful qualifying spot. This is what I kind of said. It's a little tougher to kind of figure out in this 31 to 38 because of how they qualified. Chase Elliott had a bad qualifying, but was good in practice. Noah Gragson was good in practice again, but he just absolutely he didn't hit the wall, but he really struggled in qualifying. He was the slowest car. Josh Berry, who is typically extremely good at high tire wear tracks, is starting towards the rear. And then we've got the 3 down here that I just go, I don't know. Gralla, Kraus, and Burton. Let's look at some practices. So I used to have a whole bunch of other information kind of comparing these drivers. So I just kind of went to this format to kind of see if it's a little easier to read. It may or may not be. I don't know. Give me your opinion. Wyatt, I just happened to see this is Lost Profit. Do you have 2 YouTube accounts? Is that why your name changed? Or did you just decide to use your real name? Or was Lost Profit your real name and you changed your name? Are you trying to hide from somebody? This is practice data is all off. Lineup construction is tough. Yes, I still think there's valuable data inside this practice. The part that really begins to kind of show some real weird things with practice is this Group A to Group B, especially with high tire wear tracks. Richmond was real apparent. Dover was somewhat apparent. Last week was not as bad, but today was definitely apparent. Other than, yes, like just with Hendrick Motorsports. So this is a real easy comparison because most of these cars are all coming out of the same fab shop. They're all coming out of the same engine shop. The setups are probably pretty similar, but you've got Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott in Group 2 at a 41 or 400 or 29.412, and then Chase Elliott at a 47.4. Pretty close, both in Group B, or the second group. William Byron at a 29.239. Alex Bowman in the same group in the first practice group was was 5/10 off. So I don't know if that's an Alex Bowman thing. I don't know if it's a car setup thing. I don't know if that was traffic. And his fall off was not as bad as William Byron's, but there's definitely some interesting data between Group 2 to Group 1. You know, a little bit tougher to see here during Joe Gibbs because you had Denny Hamlin in Group 2 and the rest of Joe Gibbs in Group 1. And they were pretty similar. You know, Ty Gibbs was extremely fast in practice. His tire fall off, though, was, I mean, the Gibbs car's fall off was much worse than the Hendrick fall off, which I thought was kind of strange. They came out a little bit faster, so that could be somewhat of an indication of they were going for a fast lap, not for necessarily a good 10-lap average. Or is this a product of Toyota and how Joe Gibbs's team set their car up? A little unclear. And literally a half a pound to a pound of air pressure change will change the tire fall off. How these guys are running the track, if they're running all the way up close to the wall or if they're running down a lane, all that changes. But that also goes into play, how are they going to run during the race? So I'm not real sure. And then we look at Penske and the Fords, and they're pretty similar, but Group 2, at least to our one sample size of Joey Logano, was almost 0.2 slower than Blaney and Cindric. Cindric had really, really good tire wear. His speeds did not fall off much at all. So it'll be interesting to see what Austin Cindric does in the race and how he ends up placing, because he's got a place differential. He's starting 25th. So if his tire wear really is as good as it's showing, that could be somebody that we could potentially target that may get overlooked. And I'm throwing darts at this a little bit, so don't take it to full granted. Now, I did say we were going to look at value picks. So these are the bottom 6 pricing and where they're starting, where they practiced, and all those things. And a couple of the guys that I think show some interest. I mean, Todd Gillen may be starting a little further up than I really, really want, but this front row team has been showing pretty good speed during a race. So I still don't love the Todd Gillen spot where he's starting in 15th, but his tire fall off was not bad. I mean, he was not far off from Austin Cindric, who did have the best tire fall off of anybody in the field. Same thing for Justin Haley. I think I actually like the Justin Haley play. I think this is where this information could become pretty valuable. Is the Justin Haley play starting in 28th? Practice speeds were not that far off. His 10-lap average was actually pretty good, but his tire fall off from single lap to 10 lap was only 0.5. I mean, when you're looking at an Austin Cindric who had the best at a 0.44, you know, that's pretty close. Now, the speed was a little bit off, but I'm not expecting Justin Haley to go out and get a top 10. I need Justin Haley to go out and get maybe a top 15 or maybe even a top 20. If he gets 10 spots of place differential at 5,300, I'd like the Justin Haley play. So I think this part of the information could end up being valuable. Now, I'm just starting to learn this data and this information and using it as a tool for making picks. So don't take a whole lot of this with a whole lot of credence until we get more data points to kind of say, hey, yeah, over the last 6 weeks, this has been kind of an indication. But this is kind of what I'm seeing in the data and the numbers. And actually, Kaz Grala, I mean, it was slow in practice, but his speed didn't fall off a whole lot. So, I mean, at $5,000, is that somebody potentially to target? I don't love the play, but he and Justin Haley have had a tendency at these high tire wear tracks to get track position and get lucky cautions. So, I mean, a Kaz Grala starting in 34th, I mean, all you need is a 25th or better finish, $5,000, and he potentially is one of those guys that let you have a Kyle Larson and a Denny Hamlin and a Martin Truex Jr. all in the same lineup. And here's the normal sheet that I was doing before, and this was interesting. And it makes perfect sense. Now, the practice speeds were down because it's Group 2. So all this number 2 here is Group 2. So everybody that had the least amount of fall off was in Group 2. They also had, as we see, slower speeds than Group 1. So yes, the track rubbered up, the speed slowed down, but the tire wear didn't fall off as much. So is this, and this is where I go, well, maybe this isn't an indication. Maybe this is just the difference between Group 1 and Group 2. Because then you got Kyle Larson, who goes out and qualifies in 6th, and Ross Chastain, who qualifies 9th. Well, they got fresh tires, they bumped the air pressures up. Qualifying changes everything a little bit, but this is more of an indication of where they may be in true speed. Tire fall off is not bad at all. I don't know, just kind of interesting to kind of get some more of this data and kind of see where it ends up falling and where it doesn't. So there's the information. I don't know fully how it's going to turn out, but we'll report back next week and see. Guys with the worst fall off. And this has to be taken with a little bit of grain of salt because I watched practice very intensely. Christopher Bell had to slow down for another car that was coming into pit road, which changed his 10-lap average. So the fall off here was not as severe as you would think it was going to be because of that. Now, why Carson Hocevar, Ryan Blaney, and Daniel Hemrick had issues, I don't know. But these were the guys with the worst fall off. So we'll kind of see what all that means and what all that doesn't mean. All right, let's get into the driver by driver breakdown. Now that I've gone on about that for, 30 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a little crazy in the head, but with all this data and information, but we'll see. All right, so first off, this little Darlington thing over here, where it's a wall and it looks like a stripe, this means the driver got a Darlington stripe in practice or qualifying. Now, I don't think that's going to change anything for the race because by the end of this thing, most everybody will have most of the lettering completely rubbed off for the right side of the cars. I just thought it was interesting because it's kind of a thing. I guess it's kind of like a badge of honor. You get a Darlington stripe. In fact, it's really not because it does have a tendency to potentially blow tires, break tire rod ends, and those types of things. But there were probably, I think, 7 or 8 drivers who, in qualifying and practice, ended up with a Darlington stripe. And it'll be indicated by this little thing over here. Denny Hamlin, 11,500, the most expensive guy on the board, starting in 7th. Had pretty good practice speeds, 9th in single lap, 16th in 10-lap consecutive average. He's got 1 win here in the last 4. Yeah. I remember when Denny Hamlin won this. Let's see. Kyle Larson won 1. Denny's won 1. Eric Jones has won 1. And Joey Logano has won a race in the next-gen era, if I remember correctly. He finished 25th in the fall race here at Darlington last year. He's got 23 total starts with 5 total wins at the Rock, or at Darlington. 7.5 average finish over 23 starts. Really solid. This is Denny Hamlin's, actually, this is one of Denny Hamlin's best tracks. Pocono may be his first best track. Richmond is probably right there with this. Martinsville is also one of them, but he is really, really good here at Darlington. So starting in 7th, we've got I would classify him as somebody who should get a top 5 finish, unless they've got an issue or problem. Same thing here with Kyle Larson, 11,300, starting in 6th. Practice speeds were, but he was in the 2nd practice group. 15th in single lap, 3rd in 10-lap consecutive average. He does have 1 win here in the last 5 races with a 14.2 average finish. But if we look at his total body of work, 12 total starts, he's got 1 win, 6 top 5, so half the time he is finishing in the top 5, and a 9.4 average finish. So definitely somebody to keep an eye on. Kyle Larson is really good here. He and Tyler Reddick put on a clinic about ripping the top of the fence, as they call it, which is like literally running 6 inches away from the wall. So a lot of times they do end up with a lot of Darlington stripes, but since you're so close to it, it just rubs the paint off. All right, William Byron here next in line, $11,000, starting in the 5th position. William Byron does have a win here. 12th place average finish over the last 5 races. 11 total starts with 4 top 5s. He finished 4th in this fall race here last year. 5th in single lap practice, 9th in 10 lap consecutive average. I do like William Byron a decent amount this weekend, and he's got a pretty good starting spot. Also up here at the top, this is my ranking system and usage, and I have updated it because, like I said, I'm leaving first thing in the morning, so most of my picks are done and ready to be submitted. And I've got 20-25% usage in my 40 lineups that I'm running, and he comes in ranked 6th, and this takes into account practice, qualifying, place differential, the last 5 races that they had at this track, the last 10 races at similar style tracks, and a trend. What have they done lately? As in, how have they run the last 10 races? So all that kind of gets thrown into the algorithm that I use, and it spits out that William Byron is ranked 6th. So that kind of lets you know where my ranking system and how it goes up. And then I personally hand fill out 40 different lineups, and my usage for William Byron is 20-25%. Martin Truex Jr. here, next in line at 10,700, starting in the 5th position. And in practice, he was 12th in single lap and 21st in 10 lap consecutive average. A little more fall off than I'd like to see from Martin Truex Jr., but I think he'll be just fine. 23 total starts. He's got 2 wins in the last 5. He's only got 1 top 5, 1 top 10, and a 21.6 average finish. Not so good. 18th in the fall race from last year. Starting in 5th. I'm not super worried about Martin Truex Jr. and where he's starting. I think he ends up having a pretty good day tomorrow. He's also driving a throwback paint scheme to when he was racing at in the 78 car. So it looks like it's kind of neat to see the old paint scheme come back for him. Tyler Reddick, fastest man on the track today during qualifying, starting in the pole position, 10,300. Tyler Reddick is pretty good here. 9.4 average finish in the next gen era here at Darlington with 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 9.4 average finished. Runner-up finish last year here in this race, so I definitely do not mind Tyler Reddick this weekend at all. He's got an 18th place in the first or in practice speeds for single lap and 20th for 10 lap consecutive average. I don't know. I'm using practice data more than I might need to. Part of it's a gut feeling, but I think Tyler Reddick ends up having a really good day. Christopher Bell. Can Christopher Bell finally shake the cobwebs and get rid of the bad luck? Maybe. We'll see. But until he does, I'm not fully sold on taking a whole lot of him. But Christopher Bell starting 12th. He was 4th in single lap, so good single lap speed, but he did definitely fall off to 33rd. And like I said, in the 10 lap average, he definitely had to check up for a car that, I can't remember if they were coming into pit road, coming off of pit road, whatever. They kind of stole his line a little bit and slowed him down. So I'm not overly worried about the 33rd 10 lap consecutive average for him, just because I happened to catch it when I was watching his practice. 1 top 5, 2 top 10s in the last 5 races, a 13.6 average finish. Starting in 12th, we've got, maybe a little bit place differential. He's starting closer to the front, so gain some spots, finish 5th, and that's going to be a pretty good day. So I've got 15 to 20% usage on him. Chase Elliott, short run speed was not great. Long run speed seemed to be a lot better. He was 21st in single lap, 5th in 10 lap consecutive average. He's got a 16.6 average finish over the last 5 races, but he does have 3 top 10s in that. He finished 8th here in the fall race last year. But starting 31st, a ton of place differential. I definitely like Chase Elliott for place differential. In fact, I still like him even for a pretty good finishing position. I think he's easily a top 10, if not a top 5. So definitely keep an eye on Chase Elliott. And also remember, with him starting in 31st, being Chase Elliott, being decent at this track, he's going to be very, very heavily owned. He might be the highest owned driver for the race, in my opinion. And history kind of tells us that. Ross Chastain. In fact, I think William Byron today for the Xfinity race, who, because they didn't qualify, he had to start 38th, last on the field. He was 67 or 68% owned, and that almost killed everybody's lineup when he had a tire go down after 20 laps into the race. He did end up getting back on the lead lap and ended up getting 12th place finish or 11th place finish. But yeah, he was the second highest Draftkings points getter in the Xfinity race today, even after going 3 laps down, gaining them back. But nobody was touching the Gator, who led 110 or 150 laps today. He was unstoppable. Ross Chastain, 9,600, starting in the 9th position. Let's see, 25th in single lap, not great. 11th and 10 lap consecutive average, not better. 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s, 17.4 average finish over the last 5 races, and he finished 5th in the fall race last year. Probably a little lower than I should be on Ross Chastain. He did win the truck race here on Friday night. Trucks are completely different than this car, but he does know how to get around Darlington pretty well. He's another one who really, really likes to kind of run right there next to the wall. He should have a pretty good day. A little tough starting in 9th. Don't love it, don't hate it. Kyle Busch. Another week. It's now even so contagious he's spinning out the truck series. I just don't know what's going on with Kyle Busch at this point. He spun in last week's Cup race. The week prior, he did not. But this just seems to be contagious. And he's got a 23.2 average finish in the next gen era at Darlington, which is way off his 13.6 average finish. He's starting in 11th. He has moments where he's showing really, really good speed, and then it just falls off. And when it falls off for Kyle Busch, it's typically he's spinning. I'm not sold on it. I don't like the Kyle Busch play. So I've only got him in 5 to 10%. I've got him in a few lineups just kind of as a, well, if he ends up having a good day, I want to make sure I've got a little bit of him, but I'm not really sold on it. So I don't like it. Heck, I've got as much Brad Keselowski starting outside pole, which is a little dangerous in a Ford. But like I said earlier, RFK has kind of started to come on here, and these mile-plus tracks have seemed to be the sweet spot, at least it was last year. And we're starting to see a little bit of that resurgence again this year between Brad and Buescher. So starting for the second may not be awful. Maybe he gets out for a Tyler Reddick and leads a bunch of laps. Potentially. I think he and Chris Buescher are both set up for probably maybe top 5, definitely maybe top 10s. But I don't have a whole lot of ownership in him, just because starting in second does give me a little heebie-jeebies, because the days that Brad's been off, it's been off. And he was 22nd in single lap, 17th in 10 lap consecutive average. Now, he runs Darlington really well, one of his better tracks. So I could see where the call to fade, but I could also see where, with the speed that they're showing, but the sample size is a little small, so do take that into account. But don't be surprised if Brad ends up having a decent day. Ryan Blaney, who I don't know what to think about Penske at this point. They seem to be the slowest of the Fords. I don't know if it's something in the engineering group over there. I don't know if it's the new body style. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's really strange because Ryan Blaney at least started the year being competitive. And I know we've gotten to some tracks where he's not as good, but it has not been pretty out of Penske. Joey Logano has been pretty bad. Austin Cindric has been bad for the last year and a half. But it's almost like the bad bug has bit Ryan Blaney too. So starting 17th, we've got a decent amount of place differential for our defending champion on the sport. But he doesn't have a top 5 here ever. And only 3 top 10s out of 14 starts in the last 5 races. He's only got 2 top 10s. Now, he's pretty consistent about finishing kind of close to in the top 20. But starting 17th, if you finish 17th at $9,000, that does not work in DraftKings world. And he did get a pretty good Darlington stripe earlier. So, yeah. I've got 15 to 20%. That's probably a little bit on the high side. But my ranking system has 5th. That probably is about right from where he's starting with everything else. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do about Ryan Blaney, and I don't know what to do about Joey Logano. Both of them are just intriguing. $8,800 for Joey Logano, starting 14th. Practice speeds are a little better than Blaney's, but Joey Logano is also better at Darlington than Blaney is. In the last 5 races, Joey Logano's got a win. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, all 5 top 20s. 8.6 average finish. The question is, can this be the weekend that Joey Logano finally turns this thing around and at least gets a top 10, maybe a top 5? Maybe. I've got 15 to 20% ownership to kind of see if that ends up playing. This is one of Joey's better tracks. So between him, Brad, Denny, Kyle Larson, those guys are really good here. Tyler Reddick. And there's 7 or 8 guys that this is the track they circle on the calendar. Ty Gibbs next in line here at $8,500, starting in 4th. Really good single lap speed. Fell off the 23rd in his 10-lap run. Not bad coming out of the first practice group. And out of the 3 starts, he's got 2 top 20s. But that's still not a really big sample size, especially starting 4th. This scares me probably more than the Brad Keselowski play scares me. Just because we just don't have a whole lot of body of work. But in turn, it could come back and Ty Gibbs goes out and leads 60, 70 laps and wins this thing. He is due to win. I still say he's going to get a win this year. I think it's going to come more at a track like Michigan or I don't know, Gateway, something like that. But Ty Gibbs starting 4th, good for him. Maybe he finally gets his win. I've only got 5 to 10%, so that would be about par for course. Bubba Wallace, 8,200, starting in the 8th position. His practice speeds were 11th in single lap, 26th in 10 lap. 13.8 average finish. That's a little better than his total of 11 starts at a 19.5 average. 1 top 5, 3 top 10s. I mean, that's pretty good for Bubba Wallace. I mean, he definitely has not. He definitely hasn't sucked here. He's been pretty good. Starting in 8th, I've got 10 to 15% ownership. I'm willing to take a few shots at it. Hopefully, he has a good weekend. He's had definitely some struggles as of late. We thought last weekend would be a weekend that he could start to turn the struggle bus around a little bit, and that didn't seem to work. So maybe this weekend at Darlington, he can get back on the right track. Alex Bowman, $8,000, starting in 18th. He was slow in practice. 31st single lap in the first group 2. So he definitely came off the truck slow. 29th and 10 lap consecutive average. And in the last 4 of 5 races here, he's got a 24.5 average finish. That's not too good either. Finished 33rd. So why the heck do I have 20 to 25% ownership in Alex Bowman? Whew. probably way too high. I'm going to call that a gut feeling that Alex Bowman has a good day, because all indications on the data are that he does not have a good day. So I'm, yeah, 25%. That is absolutely. I'm just thinking he's going to have a good day, and I don't have any data to back it up. So, and I've always said that I would tell you that. I don't have any reason to believe by the numbers that he has a good day. I just think he's going to have a good day. So I have 25% ownership. So that's my my crazy pick of the week so far. Chris Buescher, 7,800. Man, I feel bad for Chris Buescher, even though my guy won the race last week. 0.001. That's tough. That is really, really tough. And yeah, could you imagine the bad beat betting wise that was last week? I think he was 4,000 or 400, 40 to 1. So put $10, win 400. Put $100 on it, win 4,000. Could you imagine watching that race and the call comes out, Chris Buescher's the winner? Only a minute later to find out, nope, sorry, you lost your $100 plus you lost your 4,000 that you just won. Ooh, I would not have been surprised if there had been a couple TVs that got broken because of that. Yeah, that's a bad beat. Yeah, that's tough. But either way, Chris Buescher rebounded pretty nicely. He was really fast in practice. 3rd in single lap, 2nd in 10 lap consecutive average. Good for him. Starting 3rd. I mean, when we saw RFK turn the corner last year, they came on like a lightning bolt. And caught everybody off guard. I've only got 5 to 10% usage. God, I probably should have more. To be brutally honest. Ranked 12th. I probably should have more ownership in Chris Buescher. So I'm going to be honest and tell you guys, I'm probably going to go back and look. I might end up putting a little more Chris Buescher in and a little less Alex Bowman in. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that a good call or a bad call? Does Chris Buescher go out and dominate this thing? He finished 3rd in this race last year in the fall. All indications are that Chris Buescher's due for a good win. And he's going to be determined to get that win after last week. I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts? Hit me up in the chat. Should I take Chris Buescher or should I take Alex Bowman? If I had enough subscribers and I could do polls, I would do a poll. But I don't think it'll let me. Let's see. Ooh. Start a poll. Should I take Bowman or Buescher? Bowman, Buescher. Start a poll. All right. Hit me up. Let me know. Who should I take? Alex Bowman or Chris Buescher? I've never tried to do a poll. Either way, let's see if that works. Eric Jones, 7,500. Welcome back, Eric Jones, from his back injury. He showed up pretty good in practice. 7th and 10 lap, or 7th in single lap, 14th and 10 lap consecutive average. He did 31 laps. Said he felt pretty good after getting out of the car. He's got 2 wins. One of those wins in the next gen era. Finished 10th in this race last year. Starting in 30th, a ton of place differential opportunities here. I'm 35% ownership in him, so I'm thinking that Eric Jones is going to come out and have a good day. Either way. Next in line here, Noah Gregson at 7,200. He was pretty good in practice, 13th in single lap, 7th in 10 lap, and as I spoke about earlier, he definitely scrubbed the wall really, really hard. They have, for what I've heard, he does not have enough damage that he's going to have to go to the rear, or he's going to have to change cars. They're going to be able to fix it, but he's already starting in the rear, so that doesn't really matter. So yeah, starting 36, dead last on the field, nowhere to go but up. I probably should have more ownership, but he's going to be right there between him, Eric Jones, and Chase Elliott are going to be extremely heavily owned. But as we've seen in the past, just because they start in the back doesn't mean they're going to have a good DraftKings day. Remember that. So I do have some ownership in Noah Gragson. He's been on a top 10 tear lately too. So hopefully he continues that. I'm a Gragson fan. Daniel Suarez, but yeah, I'd definitely take Gragson. There's no reason not to, other than he's going to be heavily owned, and we've discussed that before. Daniel Suarez, $7,000, starting 19th. He was 33rd in single lap, 24th in 10 lap. Ew, that's really bad practice speeds. And he only has one top 10 out of 12 total starts here. God, why do I have 15 to 20% ownership in Suarez? I don't know. Because once again, I like Alex Bowman. There's no indication on why he is going to finish better than 19th. So I might have too much ownership in Daniel Suarez. I mean, it's not that. It's high, but it's not that high. I don't know. We'll see. That could change. But starting in 19th, I don't love this play. So I don't know why I have so much. That's kind of why I do these videos. It makes me check myself and potentially go back and make adjustments if I need to. Chase Briscoe, starting in 13th after 30th in single lap, 12th in 10 lap. Finished 15th in this race last year. About the best positive news, and out of the last 5 races, he's got 4 top 20s. But starting in 13th, finishing, 17th or 18th? Doesn't pay the bills, at least not in DraftKings world. So I have 5 to 10% ownership just in case he happens to have a pretty good day. But yeah, my indications are that he's going to have about the same kind of day as Daniel Suarez and maybe Alex Bowman. So why I took so much of those two, and I didn't take much of Chase Briscoe. Josh Berry starting in 33rd, another one that we can easily take from the rear, because he was 29th in single lap, 19th in 10 lap consecutive average. He's only got one start here where he finished 30th. I think he's much more accustomed to this car at this point. And if there's a type of track that Josh Berry does really well at, it's high tire wear. So starting in 33rd, I mean, I think Josh Berry is probably a 20 to 23rd place driver. It's 10 spots a place differential. 6,700. I don't know if it's borderline. But if he ends up having any kind of a better day, if he finishes 15th or better, then you almost have to have him. So yeah, that's kind of, you gotta damn if you do, damn if you don't, but I can understand why not having him. Where I think Noah Gragson ends up finishing better than Josh Berry. How much better? I don't know. But it's another easy play because of the place differential potential. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who's actually honestly pretty good here. Starting in 20th, he was 10th in single lap, 8th in 10 lap consecutive average. Practice speeds were really pretty good. The last 5 races, he's got a top 10, 4 top 20s, starting in 20th. 17.8 average finish. Finished 16th last fall in this race, at this racetrack. I got 10 to 15% ownership. I'm okay with that. I could even see going up more, so maybe trade out a little Daniel Suarez for a little bit of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. if I've got some salary cap relief in there that I could use. But yeah, I don't mind the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. play at all. Michael McDowell, congratulations. Michael McDowell got a long-time contract to go with, he's moving over to Spire, taking over the 71 car from Zane Smith. I'm unsure where Zane's going, but Zane is actually an employee of Trackhouse, not an employee of Spire. They kind of had a deal to work together. But Michael McDowell starting 16th, he was fastest in single lap, but Michael McDowell's been doing that all year long. He comes out and fires off extremely fast. And then next thing you know, we get to the race and we get about 50 laps into a race and he blows a tire or something goes wrong and he is dismal. So, don't starting in 16th. Yeah, I don't mind taking a few shots on Michael McDowell, but when you've got a 23rd place average finish over the last 5 races here, finished 32nd last fall, and your total body of work is at 25.6, and the best 2 races were sometime in the last 5 years. Prior to that, you hadn't finished in the top 20. Yeah, I could easily see fading off of Michael McDowell starting in 16th. It's potentially a little bit high up, but he has had, it's been real hit or miss is the problem. If he hits, he's going to finish 8th. If he misses, he's going to finish 28th. So I'm thinking probably more on the 28th side. So I faded off of it. Austin Dillon, this is one of his better tracks. Starting 23rd, his practice speeds were awful. 36th in single lap, 27th in 10 lap. But in the last 5 races, he doesn't have a top 5, but he's got 2 top 10s, 4 top 20s. Okay, all those are pretty good. 18.2 average finish. Finished 20th in the fall race last year. Okay. Starting 23rd, there's a little bit more wiggle room than my Daniel Suarez or Alex Bowman pick, and he's got a better average finish than those guys. So 15 to 20%, I'm comfortable with that. Next in line, Austin Cindric, who really got fast in a 10-lap consecutive average. Austin Cindric, 6,200, starting in 25th. Was pretty good in practice, and it was the second practice session. Yeah. Now, out of the 4 previous starts, he's got 3 top 20s and a 21st place average finish. I've got 15 to 20%. I'm taking a shot on Austin Cindric. I think there's something, I'm basing it on practice speeds, and that he had a decent, what we consider a long run, which is 10 laps, which is not a long run, but it's an indication of maybe what the tires are doing and how the driver's driving it and how the car's handling. So I'm taking some shots on Austin Cindric. I know he's sucked the last year and a half, but taking some shots on it. Not taking a whole lot of shots on John Hunter Nemechek. Starting in 22nd, we don't have any recent data for Mr. Nemechek, but during the COVID years, he's got a 22nd place average finish. 1 top 10. He was 14th in single lap, 15th in 10 lap. I see a little bit of argument that he might be able to pick up maybe the 13th or 14th. That might be enough at $6,000. I don't think so. I've only got 5 to 10%. Let's see. So far, Buescher is taking all of the spots. Make sure you vote in the do I take Alex Bowman or Chris Buescher this week. Alex Bowman's got a little bit more PD upside, and Chris Buescher's got a much better finishing potential upside. Ryan Preece, $5,900, starting 26. Yeah, supposedly, poor Ryan Preece was not in the cool kids club. Supposedly, he was left out of the fun class that Josh Berry, Noah Gregson, and Briscoe were having. He found out. That kind of sucks. Those bullies. They include Ryan Preece in their fun party. But either way, he's now invited into the Cool Kids Club. You can now go join them in Pee Wee's Playhouse. Ryan Preece, $5,900, starting 26. Sorry, I just found it quite humorous that these guys were whining and crying because somebody got left out of the clubhouse. And I know that would suck. If I were Ryan Preece, I'd be like, "What the fuck? Really? Oops, I need to cuss. Sorry. What the heck?" But Ryan Preece, $5,900, starting 26th, 24th in single lap, 22nd in a 10 lap consecutive average, 18.3 average finish. That's not bad over the last 3 starts. 22.3 over his 8 total starts. That's not bad. I don't mind taking probably some shots on that. In fact, I took 5 to 10%. Okay. Which probably means I have him in 3 to 4 lineups. But, yeah, fair. But, the potential's here. Stuart House has been showing periods of pretty good speed. Ryan Preece has not. I don't mind taking a few shots. Don't love it. Don't hate it. Carson Hocevar. My guess is Carson Hocevar is going to start 21st and probably finish close to 21st. Now at 5,800, is that enough? I don't think so. He needs to start like 26th and finish 20th. And then even then, I don't think it's enough really. But at 5,800, his practice speeds weren't not great. 27th in single lap, 35th in 10 lap, which is a little strange because usually he practice and qualifies about the same, and then he goes out and finishes the same. The one sample size we do have, he did get a 17th place finish. I don't like this play starting in 21st. I think the best we're looking at is maybe a 17th place finish if we have all things normal for this race. So, and there is always potential of something drastic happening, but I'm not taking shots on it. Corey LaJoie, 5,700, starting in 24th. Pretty good practice speeds for Corey, but he has been doing that most of the year also. He's been practicing really well. And then qualifying, pretty good, and then falling off the cliff when it comes to the race. Starting 24th, 8th in single lap, 18th in 10 lap, 24th place average finish. So about where you're starting. Finished 22nd in this race last year. Just not a whole lot of upside. I've got a little bit of shots on him because it's $5,700. Got to have some cheap options going to afford the big dogs. So I do have some ownership in Corey LaJoie, but I don't. It's throwing darts at this point, and that's really realistically that's what this is at this point. Getting down here, any of these guys have the potential to have a decent day. They get lucky with a long run or short run, maybe a little bit of carnage, and missing something, and they end up getting a 19th place finish or something. And at 56, 55, I mean, in these $5,000 range, it's realistically throwing darts. The only one that I have interest in is Justin Haley, and his practice speeds are pretty good, and his average here is pretty good. But we're almost to him. I think he's next in line or next one. Zane Smith starting in 27th. There's just been nothing that makes me think Zane's going to end up having a good day. I threw a couple darts, but that was about it with Zane. Nothing else. Todd Gillen starting in 15th. He was fast in practice, 16th and 4th and 10 lap consecutive average. Pretty good. He's got a 20th place average finish. Finished 26th in this race last year, 2 top 20s. I mean, yeah. I just don't think there's any more upside than, if he has a really, really good day, he's going to finish 10th. And at 5,500, that might potentially be enough. But, yeah, I don't have a whole lot of ownership. Harrison Burton, we're almost to a point to where there's no room to go but up. No Gregson's going to pass him the first lap. $5,400, so he's going to fall at least one spot. 37th in single lap, 31st in 10 lap, nothing there. Does have a 19th place average finish. That's probably the one bright side. And one of those finishes was the 35th last year. So his average finish is not bad. He does have a top 10 finish here at Darlington. No room to go but up. I don't mind throwing a few darts at Harrison Burton, but I'm not expecting that to really pay off. But I would not be surprised if one of these guys down here is going to be in the optimal lineup or close to it. It's just the way this next gen era has set up with DraftKings. The one I'm really most curious about, if Justin Haley ends up having a bad day, I'm probably screwed. 5,300, starting 28th. He was 28th in single lap, 25th in 10 lap, but he's got a 15.8 average finish. Now, before everybody starts yelling, yes, I know that was in Colleague. But have we seen Colleague lately? They are not very good. In fact, Justin Haley, I think, has a better finishing position than anybody else at Colleague. Starting 28th, pretty much practiced there. And he was decent on his long run speed. I don't need Justin Haley to go hit a home run here. I need Justin Haley to hit a good, solid single or double, get on base, and finish 20th at 5,300. that's probably going to be close to the optimal lineup. Daniel Hemrick starting in 29th. His practice speeds were 35th and 36th. So, yeah, not interested there. 27th place average finish. I don't have any interest in Daniel Hemrick. Derek Kraus starting in 32nd. At least his practice speeds are a little bit better. I mean, I think I threw a few more darts at Derek Kraus than I did Daniel Hemrick, but not a whole lot there, really. I mean, honestly. I mean, all these guys are doing are just getting laps and learning this car. That's all it is. Same thing with Cosgrove. But at $5,000 starting in 34th, he's probably going to beat Harrison Burton. That's probably if he doesn't wreck. He has a tendency to wreck at these style tracks. So I may not have any ownership actually in Cosgrove. So I could easily say see fading off of Cos. But it's starting in 34th. I mean, all he's got to do is beat a handful of guys, and it might pay off. All right, either way, I like the plays. I like Chase Elliott, Larson, Hamlin, and Truex are my 4 top favorite plays. Place differentials, the Ryan Blaney, Joe Logano, Noah Gragson, Josh Berry, all really, really good plays. Along with I'm Justin Haley. I am gonna set the world on fire with Justin Haley. I'm kidding. Guys I don't really like. I really don't like the Gibbs play. I'm really not a huge fan of the Nemechek play. I know I've got some ownership in Austin Cindric. I don't love it, but I've got some. William Byron, I think, heads up potentially. This could be a win for William Byron, honestly. Christopher Bell is looking to turn his season back around. He does have the win, so he's locked in the playoffs, but he needs to get the ship head in the right direction. Tyler Reddick starting from the pole. I mean, this will be one of the first races that he'll make me look dumb and lead 240 laps or something stupid. But I honestly, I don't think that's going to happen. Their pit crew's just not that good. Keep him out front. The question is, can he race back up front? Probably. Kyle Busch, Spinny. He went from Rowdy to Spinny. Spinny Bush. Does he spin again? That should be really the. We should be able to bet on that. I wonder what the odds are that Kyle Busch spins again. Don't like that play. Chris Buescher, so far 100% in the poll. So maybe I should take Buescher over Bowman. Cheap guys. I mean, you could throw darts at Cosgrove. Any of these guys you could throw darts at. Gralla, Haley, Arsavar, Kraus, Dillon, Burton, McDowell. I don't like the McDowell play. Ryan Preece. Yeah, I'm fine with any of those. And you're going to have 2 to 3 of them just to make the rest of the lineup work. So, either way, I have wasted everyone's time for a significant amount of time for a Saturday evening. I appreciate you tuning in. Good luck tomorrow. Headed down there. It's going to be warm. It's going to be 81 degrees. Yep, already packed my sunscreen. I got my hat. I got everything good. I'm really looking forward to going to Darlington. It's going to be quite exciting. I'll be sitting up in turn 1, section O, right next to the very one closest to the start finish line and the furthest, and that first big tower that you see as they come down the front stretch. So I'm going to be looking straight down the front stretch. It'll be pretty cool. I'm excited. Can't wait to do it. Have a great weekend. Hopefully you win a bag. If you do, make sure you hit me up in the chat or send me a message. I appreciate you tuning in. Look forward to everyone next week where we head to... God, where do we go next week? But so focused on life and everything else. Let's see. After Darlington, I don't have a clue where we go next week. Schedule. Next race. Yeah, we know that one. Oh, it's All-Star. Yeah, so I'm moving my dad from Charleston, South Carolina, up to the mountains of North Carolina. So I could literally just hang out there until Saturday or Sunday and go watch the race at North Wilkesboro. So, All-Star race. I will I don't know if I'm gonna have a video next week or not. Yeah, I'll probably have a video next week. I don't know how much. I go very, very light on the All-Star. They just throw a lot of things at that race, and it's really hard to be real predictable. And because you don't know all the players going in, it makes it really tough to put lineups together really quickly. So, I mean, if anything, I may do some cash lineups, or I may do some single hitters or triple hitters. Probably no large field tournaments. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'll still probably put together some type of video breaking down North Wilkesboro. But either way, I plan on playing pretty light next week. So, I appreciate you tuning in. Maybe I'll post a picture from the track tomorrow. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and I think they will be able to pass at Wilkesboro being repaved. Yes, and it's not just because of the repave. I think it's because also Goodyear's bringing 2 tires. And I think that's the most intriguing part of the All-Star race is the 2-tire option. But yes, I think they'll be able to pass, but I think it's not because of the pavement. I think it's going to be because of the tires and who does what. And I think it's really intriguing that they've got a hard compound and a soft compound. What that actually looks like, I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch. And I hope it ends up being very exciting and a lot of fun, because I want softer tires. I am absolutely 100% with Denny Hamlin. I want softer tires. I want tires that literally fall off like they did at Bristol. I thought that was the best race we had in 10 years. So, I don't know. It's going to be fun to see. I think Wilkesboro, the aerial pictures of that new pavement and the pretty lines and all the paint and all the stands and everything else, the place is manicured. It looks great. It's a beautiful track. I hope to go see a race there in person at some point, because I drive by it all the time going to see my dad. So would love to see it. Either way, I'm going to end the poll. Let's see. Did I have anybody more than one vote on it? I had 4 votes. Everybody said Busher. Okay. I'll go and take a little off of Bowman and put some more Busher in. You talked me into it. Cool. I appreciate everybody tuning in and voting in the poll. I'll try to do more polls in the future. I didn't know I was even actually able to do it. But yeah, I'll do some more polls for next week. I'll come up with a strategy. Maybe we'll have some fun with the All-Star race and we'll do a lot of polls. Either way, thanks for tuning in. See everyone next week. Have a great weekend and take home a bag or 2. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah!
Proud of you there, man. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.